He lives and exists in a wider culture, which ultimately, where people decided, men mostly, decided that the appointment of Peter Mandelson was, and I quote this carefully, worth the risk. And I think it's that culture that we need to change, and we need to change it by making some specific changes to the way that we conduct politics.
Let's now speak with Polly Billington. Polly is the Labour MP for East Thanet. She's also Vice Chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and she spoke in the big debate after Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, indeed putting quite a lot of pressure on the government to change its position in terms of opening up the information that was going to come out. Polly, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
A pleasure to be here, Ayesha.
Your thoughts on this resignation?
I think like has been said, like Caroline said, it's the right thing to happen. We could have had this a bit earlier, because we need to have some clarity on both competence and direction, which reflects the values not only of the party that has been elected to government, but also the values of the British public who voted for us. They wanted some probity in public life after Partygate, etc., and they wanted some stability. And I think those are the things that we owe the British public. And I'm hoping that with this decision today, we have at least one step forward towards both a better conduct of public life in terms of probity and in terms of stability.
And how much, I suppose, blame, or how much do you think Morgan McSweeney was responsible for clearly an unhappy culture within the Labour Party?
Well, can I make one thing clear about this? And I think it's very important to say this, because what we end up doing at the moment is chasing or characterising individual men as the kind of centre of a particular nexus and network of behaviour, as though if we take them out, then everything else will be sorted. And what you see is that there's a trail here, and you may not be directly associated with the person right at the nexus of one particular network, but you still end up being part of the story. So I wouldn't want anybody to think that simply by one resignation that the culture that we're talking about will suddenly be transformed. Partly because I know Morgan, and I would not say that he in any way, shape or form culturally is responsible personally or solely for any particular behaviours or whatever. He has taken responsibility for the advice that he has given, but he lives and exists in a wider culture, which ultimately, where people decided, men mostly, decided that the appointment of Peter Mandelson was, and I quote this carefully, worth the risk. And I think it's that culture that we need to change, and we need to change it by making some specific changes to the way that we conduct politics. And I would refer to another man on that, and that's Gordon Brown, who outlined in some detail this weekend some of the changes that could be made that might make it easier for us to conduct our politics, reducing our exposure to the risk of this kind of poor behaviour. But let me tell you one straightforward thing that I think you and I, Ayesha, would agree with, is that fundamentally, and what we see this in the exchanges in the emails among with Epstein and others, is that if you have a room full only of men, you are likely to be making the wrong decisions. Just categorically, you are forgetting the 50% of the population. They're simply not there at the table. They're not there in the conversation. And therefore, the decisions that you will be making will be bad decisions. And unless and until we enshrine that in the way that we conduct politics in this country, we will continue to have poor decisions being made because men think in a different way when women aren't around.
So, I very much agree with what you've said, but how do you practically make that happen. And some of the measures that Gordon Brown was talking about, and they're very admirable measures. A lot of them are things like banning second jobs, and that's all very important. And there's lots of things which are anti-corruption. But there needs to be a turnaround in the culture of the Labour Party very, very quickly. There's really important elections coming up. The country is sort of sick of watching this kind of psychodrama playing out. How does that happen quickly? And does that mean that Keir, does it come from the man at the top, the leader at the top, Polly?
I have absolutely no doubt that Keir Starmer respects women. And I have absolutely no doubt that given the list of recommendations by Gordon Brown, like an independent anti-corruption commission, that Parliament could be quite specific about naming corruption as a new statutory offence, that commissioners should have statutory powers of search and seizure, that we should use that new ethics and integrity commission to be placed on a statutory basis. Those things will make a lot of difference. And
are they going to win the trust of the public? Because time is by the time you've set all of that up, you could be getting that implemented by the time of the next general election. This stuff takes a lot of time.
Making it clear that is what you are going to do as a matter of urgency would be important. We have an elections bill coming up, which is going to include, reducing the exposure of this government of our politics to foreign money. That could at least be one place to do it. But I do think the people that are in number 10 and across government do need to be considered in the light of how do we demonstrate that we're going to be doing things differently. And first and foremost of that, the new chief of staff must be a woman.
And just very quickly, do you think that getting rid of Morgan going, is that enough to save the Prime Minister?
I think that, I think most people are absolutely the opposite of Pam in Gavin and Stacey. They're not sitting around going, oh, I love the drama. They're fed up with it. They would actually like some stability and some calm.
But there's lots of people messaging in saying that they really want Keir Starmer to go.
Well, I think they need to be careful about that, because actually that will end up with more destabilising of the country, when actually we've got somebody who is in a time of profound global instability, is able to make sure that we do the right thing on the international stage. I can't tell you the number of people who, more than anything else, there are two things that worry people: the cost of living and global uncertainty. And the fact that Keir Starmer understands that those two things are linked is really important for us to being able to demonstrate that competence and direction.
Polly Billington, thank you very much for your time. That's Polly Billington, the Labour MP for East Thanet. She's also Vice Chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party.